we can welcome in our good friend John Maakaron to the show, to the program here. John, welcome in. We appreciate you for joining us. Publisher of All Lions, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, good friend of the show, and someone who's going to be coming on every single Wednesday at 8:45 sharp to break down Lions news. John, we do see us having a little bit of the JJ conversation. I want to ask you, you know what? We'll just ask your opinion on it because I'm curious. We had this conversation with you about JJ. We know how you feel. What do you think about the argument for the New England Patriots or a New York Giants, where it's like, you're not ready for a franchise quarterback? What's your take on that narrative? You're not ready for a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely, fellas. How we doing? Look, I'm gonna crack a beer. It was a long day of work.
There we go, John.
Come on.
Hey, the mountains are blue, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Okay, boys, what do you got against J.J. McCarthy? You want to send him to New England, where it's the Patriot way, where he can't talk, he can't post on social media? Hell no. And then you want to send him to the Giants? Good Lord, their offense is antiquated and backwards. I would hope that he lands with the Vikings, because you then have an opportunity to see what he's all about in the division and go for it and go for the gusto, because you really have a quarterback that has a lot of the intangibles, but you don't know yet about his passing prowess and how he's going to handle a violent defense like the Lions. Hell no, you're not going to send him to the Patriots or the Giants. I hope the best for J.J. McCarthy. He did a lot of good things for Michigan, but a lot of unknowns. But someone told you guys intangibles, and then all of a sudden you start hearing he's a top 5, maybe even a top 10 draft pick. A lot of teams are going to want him.
Hey, John, I put a guarantee yesterday that he's going to be a top 10 pick, and potentially I put a guarantee top 10. Watch out for him to be in the top 5. So I'm locked in on that.
What do you got?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'll start us off here then real quick. Want to ask you this, John. I don't know if you were getting right into it, but hey, one of the biggest thing, at least for me, that I've seen the last 2 or 3 days with the Detroit Lions, is this whole corner situation, the DB situation. And I'm sure you've seen, John, that the last couple hours and 12 hours and yesterday, there's been all of these releases of DBs, teams getting rid of cap. All of these players are now on the market. To me, it looks like Brad Holmes just has a field day now. He has players to pick from. He knows whether he wants to go draft, he wants to go free agency, trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Where do you see, and we might have talked about it last week a little bit with you, but just kind of with what happened the last 48 hours, where do you kind of see Brad going with this? Because now there's just so many options. He can go free agent, trade, draft. There's so many things that he can do. Where do you see him kind of going with that?
Yeah, no doubt. First and foremost, to take a step back, we got to start to question, until we see it, can the Lions evaluate the cornerback spot? You look at it, the entire position has been a complete and utter disaster. You look at it and you say, you've had multiple DB coaches. You blew out Audrey Pleasant. You bring in a new, inexperienced guy at the NFL level in Dre Bly. That's a disaster. You go in to a 2023 season, and yeah, you wanted Emmanuel Mosley, and you had Jerry Jacobs, and you have Gilmore, and you have a bunch of really unproven guys outside of Cam Sutton. And it's a disaster, recognizing that it's really interesting because Aaron Glenn played the position, so they haven't gotten it right in 3 years. Luckily, now they got a guy with more experience to man the ship. Hopefully now, 3rd time's the charm with this DB coach in Deshae Townsend. So you look at it and you say, okay, now and Brad Holmes hasn't even drafted a cornerback. I think we all got a shitty taste in our mouth because the last guy that was a top 5 pick for the Lions was Jeff Okudah, who the whole world thought was not supposed to be that pick at that spot. So I'm looking at that position and I'm going, it's been a cluster after this whole time. Now you finally have to reshape it. And for me, I guess today, now having a course, I'm a swing for the fences kind of guy. We can talk about all the crumb bums out there and be cheap and go out and get the Kendall Fullers or the Chidobe
John.
and all the cheap people. I'm swinging for the fences. Just go out and do it. Get the guy that won the ring. Get L'Jarius Sneed. Pair him with Cam Sutton. If you look at his numbers, look, in the end, if you want to shore up a need, why would you go out and get all these other guys? That list that you guys put up there made me want to barf. You could have just put Detroit Lions next to him, because the level of play of those guys are B-, C+ at best. Go out and get the A+ guy and take a swing. I don't believe that the risk for L'Jarius Sneed, if you offer, look, you're going to hear 2nd round pick, $20 million. But if you offer a 3rd round pick, you have an extra one, and you offer some picks next year, your opportunity, I think the risk is, not as high to sign a L'Jarius Sneed and go out there and take care of business. And then that just and look, you guys, Gentry, you're a Red Wings fan, and I've been saying it on multiple podcasts. The signing of DeBrincat gave so much hope. It brought a level of seriousness, like, whoa, it's time for the Red Wings to make the playoffs and stop being a delinquent franchise and getting back to where they were. You go out there and you swing for the guy and you get him. That sends the message to everybody, okay, now we got the position. Yeah, you could talk about Mitchell, and I'm listening to everyone talk about him. He's great for sure, but he's a rookie, and you're going to expect him to stop the likes of a Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl if it's the Lions and the Chiefs. Come on, man, that pressure's a little high. It's a lot of high expectations for a rookie. Go out and get a proven guy that's got the swagger, that's going to come in here and handle business. Swing for the fences.
Yeah, John, you kind of talked about getting to the Super Bowl, and the thing that kept the Lions out of the Super Bowl this year was drops. And you didn't expect it to happen. And we went to the combine and we saw all the wide receivers run. And we even talked about before the show that this is a loaded wide receiver class. So after watching this combine, is there any receiver that jumps out to you that you think Brad will either make a move for earlier in the draft or just anywhere through the draft? Do you think there's a wide receiver that Brad likes post combine?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to knock two stones. I know what you guys were talking about trading up. Man, Brian Thomas did some things. I thought that if you're going to move up into that 14 to 16 spots, go out and get Brian Thomas. He lit it up and did some things. I look at the wide receiver spot and I say, man, are you going to go out there and actually do it? Go out there and target a wide receiver in the first round. A lot of people would be talking about it because of Jamison Williams, what that means for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Go out there and swing for the fences. Grand slam, if you're going to really hang your nuts out. Why not Marvin Harrison? Go up to number 5.
Oh, God.
Why not swing for the fences? Hang your nuts out and go, hey, why not? He's the best player from lineage. But, I mean, obviously, guys, we're having fun and we're talking dream scenarios. More realistic scenarios, you look at, opportunities for the Lions on offense. I see more offensive line than I do wide receiver. But, you can never discount Keon Coleman, a guy that I think kind of showed himself out, is at Breslin right now as we speak, enjoying himself some Michigan State basketball. So in my mind, I would love it if they went out and got a Keon Coleman, added a wide receiver in order to boost this offensive line. I even put a mock draft where I had two offensive players in the first 2 rounds. Take a swing and go for it. Or if not, maybe a guy, I don't know if you guys can talk about it because you left the combine early, but Xavier Worthy, if he's there at 29, pure speed, baby. Now you got speed demons and Xavier Worthy and Jamison Williams. Look out.
Oh, man. Real quick, imagine the Marvin Harrison, Amon-Ra St. Brown duo. That would be Jahmyr Gibbs back there too. Sam Laporta. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
And then J-Mo.
Yeah, I gotta stop. I have to stop. Ben Johnson running that. Oh my God.
Dream, baby. Why not?
Don't do that to me, Doc. Come on, man.
The 4th or 5th pick, and all of a sudden you announce a trade, and it's the Lions with all the options. God. I think you would have a citywide party on Woodward,
in
man.
Detroit. In Detroit. Oh my gosh.
Hey Doc, just because you brought up his name, and because I would honestly, and I know it's trust Brad, but if the Lions took Xavier Worthy, I think I would a couple of veins in my head would pop just because he's undersized. You already have the speed with J-Mo, and he's obviously going to rise after the combine, so his value is going to be higher than it needs to be. Do you think that's like somebody they're actually looking at? Just make me feel a lot better about this situation, please.
No, look, I think when you look at position of need, I think the first thing you're going to look for is an edge rusher. I think that clearly there's a lot of need to boost the defensive line in the interior as well. So we're talking luxury here, and Brad Holmes could do anything. But, it's all going to depend on how the draft plays out. I look at it and I say that there's a lot of really intriguing options at 29 if they stay. I'm curious, would they decide to move out of that spot, in terms of having everybody wait and then you move down and add more assets? But I'm looking at, Darius Robinson in that mix if you're going to want to make a trade. You look at a lot of these players that are out there, Latu from UCLA. You look at a lot of these edge rushers and you go, okay, there's some depth there if you even want to go later. A guy that's kind of made a name for himself now that's kind of moving up the draft board, Chop Robinson. We wrote about him at All Lions. I think that, clearly defensive line is an area of need. Also, too, You look at the offensive line. Clearly, you have 3 guys that potentially, with Frank Ragnow dealing with injuries. Yeah, he's going to be there, but, pretty soon you're going to have to start looking to the future, and you're going to have to start potentially looking to replace these guys. And you look at clearly Jonah Jackson, who could be a cap casualty, could move on. If he's, you read 15 to 16 million. If that's the number, he's going to be gone. You're not going to find the Lions paying him that much. So I look at, a lot of opportunities to be happy and satisfied. There could be some shock value and some, swagger from Brad Holmes. But I think if you can go out and you shore up that offensive line, I think that would be great. And I think now you're seeing the latest round of mock draft from the beat writers. Many people like Jackson Powers Johnson. I think he's the guy that kind of feels like the Brad Holmes guy. But I would think that you would probably rank it in terms of where I think it's going to go. It's probably a toss-up between offensive line and edge. And then, then you start looking at cornerback and then on offense.
Okay. Right on. John, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate you. Danielle Hunter, he still hasn't been tagged yet. I just really want to get your thoughts on him. And do you think that's a realistic target that the Lions could go after here in a few weeks?
Yeah, free agency, guys. It's the best time of year. And that's why I'm casual. Usually you see me in a more professional situation here. Sorry for that. But, man, it's going to light up. This week you got to kind of be a little bit low-key because starting Sunday, going into Monday, it's basically glued to your phone and paying attention to what you're hearing in regards to players and things like that. You look at it and you say there's a lot of good defensive players that are out there. Yeah, Danielle Hunter, though, you look at a veteran, would have a lot to offer. I think knows the division. I do think that they're going to kick the can on a lot of different players. You're seeing, in terms of names that I wrote down here, the edge from Houston who had 12.5 sacks, Jonathan Greenard, I think is spectacular, would be a great addition. Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle, I think would be also an interesting opportunity here in Detroit. Looking at guys kind of in that 27 to 30 years old range, looking to prove themselves. But Danielle Hunter, man, he's been a guy that's, had a storied career, knows what he's doing. And again, it's all going to depend on his asking price. And you don't want to kind of get into a bidding war for a veteran, especially when you got guys on the team. I'm curious to see how Broderick Martin's going to develop. I'm curious to see in the draft if they end up adding a little bit more talent depth, a name to pay attention to. Chris Jenkins really wowed himself, and many people out of Michigan really praise him and think that he's going to translate well. Day 2 pick potentially. So you look at it and you say, in a lot of these positions we're talking about can either be handled in the draft or free agency. So the blessing is after next week, when the free agency period starts, it'll definitely clear up our draft talks because we'll know exactly where the Lions kick the can and where they made some investments. And I hope they do. I'm glad to hear that they kicked an opportunity with L'Jarius Sneed. I think that's great. You're hearing that they're interested among the 7 teams. And you look at it and you say, man, there's an opportunity for this football team to get better on defense. And they made their first step in 23. Now you take another step in 24 with Aaron Glenn coming back. Man, that's just, it's exciting. It's a great opportunity, man. And Danielle Hunter, I think he would be an asset at the same time, but I'm looking more younger and man, I would love a young defensive lineman from the draft.
And John, too, one thing we talked about a lot, and I want to ask you this before we get you out of here, is the CJ Gardner Johnson stuff. I know we've kind of went into it, and at this point it's kind of been over talked about, but just with him changing his picture now to him in a Lions uniform, free agency looming, all these safeties getting cut, I think we can all safely say that they need a little depth in that safety room. Maybe you sign a veteran safety or you draft a safety. I would lean they sign somebody. Who would be some names to you that are intriguing? We talked about Quandre Diggs yesterday. Or do you think they bring back a guy like CJ Gardner Johnson? What are your thoughts on kind of the safety room heading into free agency? Not that they need a safety, but John, you got to get a body in there.
Yeah, I think the best option, if you look at it, is CJ Gardner Johnson. He knows the system. He understands everything going on, has that swagger. You need a little bit of edge. Let me take a drink for CD Deuce, man. If he comes back, I'm just picturing all the stuff he's going to talk about, all the questions, all the rumors that he was going to the Eagles and all that nonsense and stuff like that. Look, that the athlete's social media accounts is classic in regards to following what they do. Look, these athletes are as moody as all your guys' girlfriends, man. You look at it and you say, oh, the team didn't give me the first offer that I want. Let me scrub the social media. It's a little immature. I'm not a fan of all that attention-seeking behavior, but the dude can ball out. And if you bring back Emmanuel Mosley, then hell, you got to bring back and give it. I mean, the man worked his ass off. The man worked his ass off to come back. I would bring back CD Deuce. Now, if it's not him, if you want to kind of tame down that locker room or tame down the swagger, I think Quandre Diggs is a fair free agent option. He knows, you don't have to really question what he brings to the table. He's a gamer and would probably be a little bit more affordable. I haven't really looked too much into the safeties because you look at it in terms of free agency, it's probably not the biggest need. You look more for depth, and you probably take care of that in the draft. But I look at, the safety room, and I'm encouraged. You got Ifeatu Melifonwu, if he can stay healthy, is a physical beast and is now emerging. And you got Kirby Joseph, who's also a young guy with a lot of swagger and really interesting. And I say that safety room really stepped it up and produced at a high level. One of the units on defense that you can sit back and go, hey, they got better. It's a tough unit, and it's a unit that actually understood what they were looking for. And Ifeatu Melifonwu and the ability that he had blitzing was really special to watch. So I say you bring him back. And I think the coaching staff, when you see the fatherly relationship that CD Deuce has with Aaron Glenn, I think that he can be the quarterback of that defense. And I just think that you got to be careful, though, because when you're a shit talker and you are at that level, the other side definitely wants to prove you wrong. And that can give the opponents just that extra edge to try and beat you. And Deebo Samuel was ready to talk a lot of shit to the Lions, especially after CD Deuce is waving to people and he was missing so many tackles. So he's got a lot to prove, especially with the last game that he played for the Lions being an absolutely disappointing game with a lot of missed tackles.
Yeah, no doubt. Good stuff, John. We appreciate you. As always, taking the time to join the fellas on a Wednesday night. We're going to get John on weekly. He's given us his time on Wednesday night. So we're gonna get a weekly John Maakaron segment. John, publisher of All Lines, of course, host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. You can check it out. I actually made an appearance, my second appearance. And we talked about a lot from the NFL Combine. You can check that out over on John's website as well, which I'll have linked in the description. But John, we appreciate you, and I'll catch you next Wednesday, my man.
John.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you, guys. You guys have been kind to give me a slot. I don't know if you guys are going to keep wanting to do that. I'm known to be a little bit loose-lipped, and now that you guys let me drink on air, now I'm going to go through two of them. You guys are like the easiest people. I test limits. I say whatever. You guys are the nicest hosts. You let me do and say what I want, and that's really all anybody could ask, and I appreciate you. But I'm going to make a request. When you guys take the next photo of me, use a better one, because the one you got of me is kind of like me. You got me kind of looking like I'm trying to creep out there. Get me one. I'll send you one maybe that's
we need a stoic.
Exactly. A little better, a little more professional, a little bit more. Get my good side. My God.
John, hey, I'll say this, John.
Love you, Doc.
We love you. Awesome. You're the doc. You're not going nowhere.
The best.
All right. Yeah, the best. Yeah, I did you dirty on the thumbnails. I'm not gonna lie to you. You gotta get me some headshots or something, John. I'll update them for you. I got you. Okay. I can't find John Maakaron's like a ghost. You look up the picture, you don't got no headshots. I couldn't find any.
Can we get a picture or a picture of you doing the Stone Cold with 2 Coors Light? We'll use that next time.
I'm starting with 1. Next week we'll hit 2 in our 15 minutes. No problem. Easy. I'm a beer guy. And Coors Light. Cheers to you boys. Cheers to the Wings. Cheers to Crunch Time.
Hell
cheers.
Yeah,
I'll have one next week. I'll have one next week. I'll join you.
There you go. Mr. John Maakaron joining the program.
Legend,
he's amazing.